I don't have my intro here. Hello there, Internet. MegaMogwai here with another episode of Low Budget Reaction Andy, as we are finally going to be jumping into Nasus. I assume that's how you pronounce him. If I'm butchering his name, I am sorry. I'm not going the reggaeton route. Why did I pronounce that in English? I'm not going reggaeton with him. For the sake of not pissing you guys off too much, I'm going to actually try to pronounce his name properly, but it's a little bit difficult for me because it's not very intuitive, right? I'm gonna go with Nasus. It could be Nasus, it could be NASA, for all I know. Space Doggo, but I'm just gonna go with that. So Nasus is a champion that I am actually more familiar with compared to Kindred, who I have no idea about before, even though it's kind of frustrating because Kindred has very quickly become one of my most... I'm not going to say the F word, but you know where I'm going with that. Regardless, Nasus is apparently Reggaeton's brother. They were brothers in a past lifetime, and something happened. I think Xerath did some betrayal here and there, or tricked them into basically hating each other in their post-death lives, or their lives as animals, as crocodiles and doggos just fighting over eternity in the sand. And that's basically all I know regarding Reggaeton and Nasus. It's better than nothing. And it does help me get a bit of an idea as to what expect, right? Because Nasus is the only champion left out of all these that I know nothing about. Like, I've specifically avoided any sort of Nasus spoilers on Twitter and anywhere else I was looking. I was staying away from certain sites up until now to not get spoiled. So I'm going full-on blind into this. Like I said, at Lysandra and Talia, I do know stuff about. Like, I couldn't stop myself from looking at the phone when I was bored to death during the move, right? So I wasn't strong enough for those two, but I have actually contained myself, and I have embraced discipline with Nasus, as now we're finally going to be able to not only look into this champion, but also open up Mobalytics and go over a bunch of the new cards that I was not able to go over yesterday because of the fact that I still had more champions to, react to. And without having that said, let's actually stop rambling and 12-year-old this bitch, as we're going to see what Nasus is all about. I had somebody tell me that Reggaeton is kind of like the strong brother, and Nasus is the more clever one. So that already makes me very intrigued about this champion, and yeah, I have no idea what to expect, so let's just jump into it. Make sure I'm recording and all that good stuff. All right, let's do this.
I walk through the ages. The cycle begins anew.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Slay. What I was asking in yesterday's video. This is why you should do champion reveals in order. God fucking damn it. Okay, now we know what Slay is. You get credit for slaying an ally or enemy if one of your cards kills it via damage, strike, or direct kill effect. So basically, it is exactly what I thought it was. So at least I didn't butcher that. I interpreted Slay to be exactly this, and that's what we got here. We got an Ascended 6-mana champion. So a more costly champion than his fellow brother. And he has Fearsome right here. So let's take a look at this for 1 second. You guys can't see. Wait, 6 mana 2/2? What? I have +1/+1 for each unit you've slain this game. When I strike for 10 or plus damage, you level him up. +1/+1 for each unit you slain. This is kind of like, this is like the champion version of They Who Endure. This is the champion version of They Who Endure, especially like if you play stuff like Ravenous Butcher, Glimpse Beyond, the Blighted Caretaker, amongst many others. You will be beefing up Nasus, and basically, like, the thing is, you're not accounting for what your opponent is killing, right? So he will be growing at a slower pace than They Who Endure, but he's 1 mana cheaper. He has Fearsome, and on top of this, he can level up. So I am already very, very intrigued. This could be, this could justify a Shurima Shadow Isles region combination with, the Undying. I know I've always mentioned the Undying, but to be fair, after talking about Kindred and this, that's the first thing that pops in my head. I'm sorry. That's just what it is. Let's see. I like the music, yeah.
What good comes of mortal greed?
When you slay a unit, grant me +1 attack, 1 mana, 1/2 with Fearsome. This is a fantastic 1-drop, though. It's granting itself. It keeps growing. This could be the equivalent of the Greenglade Caretaker for some sort of Shurima Shadow Isles self-kill? Aristocrat. Let's go with, the MTG term, Aristocrat archetype. I'm already loving this shit. Bakai Reaper, more exciting than the 1-mana 3/1 that we've seen prior.
Punishment if I serve as an example.
I love that Ravenous Butcher is getting some love again, man.
Judgment awaits.
Let's see that level up animation. After his brother, Reggaeton, I'm just gonna say, there are some expectations to be met. An ally strikes it. Wait. An ally strikes a unit. If it dies, grant allied champions everywhere +2/+2. So it's kind of like a slow speed, more limited concerted strike that has a bigger payoff effect. I mean, because their strike doesn't really have a payoff effect on its own, but you get what I'm saying, right? It's more limited, but it gives Shurima access to combat removal, which is something that up until now, pretty much mostly Demacia and perhaps a little bit of Noxus, even though they have more limitations in regards to when they can play these, like Whirling Death, for example. Shurima has also got this, and that's a big deal for the region, because the region having the ability to deal with single target, like single threats, is something that, for example, Target can struggle more with, even though they have stuff like Hush. There are some issues that the region has had that makes it's one of the reasons why they've made it so powerful in other aspects, and when you combine it with regions that patch up that weakness, that's what we have with Target now being one of the strongest regions in the game, right? So this is a very relevant information. The fact that we have single target removal in Shurima, and especially that it's combat based, that makes this region and Demacia perhaps overlap a little bit, and that's completely fine as long as it's not too much, right? Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. All right, let's see. It's gonna be the level up with the level up requirement. Spell shield.
Expansive eternity stretched out before me.
It's more mellow. It's more mellow. Like I gotta admit, like Reggaeton's, just slaughtering a bunch of people and then yelling like an alpha. That really, I don't know. I was gonna say that spoke to me. I don't know why, but but that did. Regardless, we have Nasus here with Spell Shield. So they who endure, who comes in one turn earlier, as they level up, gets Spell Shield, which makes the atrocity play even more likely, or less likely to be disrupted, rather. We see here, I have +1/+1 for each unit you've slain this game. Enemies have -1 power permanently. Dude, that's wild. That's wild, because you can even play Nasus in maybe Mist Wraith decks or Fearsome decks in general. That's a really strong effect. I wonder how easy it'll be to level up Nasus. I wonder if you construct the deck properly, you should be able to level him up the same turn you play him if you have the attack token on curve, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can build a deck to consistently be able to do that, and that's a big deal.
Spirit is hollow.
Oh, you live it! Ascended! Oh, I forgot he's ascended! We have another level up! Wait, I forgot about that for a second.
The wheel never stops turning.
Okay, that's cooler. Well, God, I'm slow. I have +1/+1 for each unit you slay in this game, but 10/10 to start. But enemies have -3. Okay, so anything fearsome is just basically elusive at that point. Okay. I like the fact that both brothers have 10/10 stats. I really like that.
Turn to dust. I enter eternity with my
So thick. So that guy that told me. Wait. That guy that told me that Reggaeton is the beefy version of the two brothers and Nasus is the more clever one, that's not exactly what's being represented here. I would assume that the champion's abilities have something to do with death, rather. I mean, Nasus does look like Anubis, the death god from Egyptian religions and stuff, or mythology rather. So it's definitely fitting for him to function as They Who Endure. I like the spell shield upon level up, and I like the uniformity expressed by both brothers when they ascend, both of them having the 10-10 stat line. That's more of an aesthetic thing than anything else, but it's really important for card games, in my opinion, for things to be uniform in that regard. It seems like irrelevant to most people watching this, but it is actually a very important design decision. And I like it. Your brain like automatically like correlates that with like being ascendant now, right? Having these thick 10-10 stats and very, very powerful effects on top of them. But it seems that out of the two brothers, Nasus is the one that has the potential to get thicker. And by thicker, that's not really like doing justice to how big it can get, right, in the right deck. And I am very excited. Am I going to be combining Nasus and Kindred in a deck with the Undying immediately? Probably. I'm not sure if that's the way to go. I feel like Kindred may be more of a specialized champion for a more control version of the deck, but I could be wrong. I feel like Nasus fits more decks that are built like They Who Endure. Like, I don't know if you actually even want to play Nasus with the Undying. You may want a more... yeah, like a They Who Endure list, like a very low curve of, with your Bark Beasts, your Ravenous Butchers, your Cursed Keepers, any sort of utility in the form of units that Shurima can provide for that sort of tactic. You spread the board, you have a bunch of things dies, you kill a bunch of things yourself until you get on turn 6, you play a huge Nasus, you strike with it somehow, either attacking or using that spell that we saw earlier, level him up, get the spell shield, and then set up for an atrocity kill. We don't have the overwhelm like They Who Endure, but he comes in one turn earlier and gains spell shield upon leveling up, which, like I said, is a very, very important detail because you can try to use it to wait for the level up to then set up the atrocity kill and play in a more reactive manner, right? I like this champion a lot because it does fall into the death theme that we've been seeing represented quite a bit within this expansion. Kindred is still my favorite up until now with all the different reveals, even though Talia is really close when it comes to how intriguing she is, right? But I need to sit down and actually go over Talia more. But ultimately, I love Kindred, and I really like a champion like Nasus. I think it's going to go a long way, and I think we're going to see Endure-like strategies with Shadow Isles at its core being very, very represented in the meta once this expansion hits. So without further ado, let's actually hop onto Twitter. Let's talk a bit about the cards that we see there, because there are probably more stuff to read, and then we're going to be going over to Mobalytics and doing a little bit of a catch-up, because I have so many cards to go over. So yeah, I'm like rambling at this point. I'm going to make this video way too long. So let's keep moving, actually. All right, here we go. Back at it in the middle. The perfect location, I'd rather say. So here we go. Nasus Ascended. We got the 3 forms right there. And then we do see the Siphoning Strike right here, which happens to be Nasus' signature spell, which allows you to level him up. So it's nice to have that as your signature spell. I'm not sure if you will be main decking Siphoning Strike. Outside of that, it's kind of like a situation like, Twisted Fate with Pick a Card. Pick a Card can be very good alongside the champion to help you for the level up, but the card on its own may be a little bit underwhelming compared to other cards that do much more for the same amount of mana, despite the fact that they are in other regions, right? We have Rite of the Calling right there, which is a 0 mana slow speed spell that says kill an ally or destroy a mana gem to draw a champion. This card with the Undying, is already amazing. This card excites me much more with Kindred than with Nasus, because I can utilize this on the Undying, and I can have a very consistent way of drawing it to Kindred. But if you do play this in Undying deck, you do have to run a full set of champions, right? Otherwise, this card can prove to be a bit of a liability at times. No, at the end of the day, that's not true. If you really want to draw Kindred and you have the ability, what was Kindred's signature spell, actually? It was the 2 mana card, right? So you can keep shuffling it back to your deck potentially. So I actually really do like this card in that idea. But more so than Nasus, I like this card with Kindred. So I'm actually I'm happy that I saw this after that reveal. Like, I guess there had to be some perk to it, right? We got, for 7 mana, Spirit Fire, which is a burst speed spell that says give enemies -2 power, and round end, deal 2 to me this round. Now, this is very interesting for a potential crazy open attack. I really like this card in any deck that focuses on fearsome synergy. Something like Mist Wraiths could benefit from this for like open attacks. Now, how to fit this card exactly in an Allegiance deck is, easier said than done. But ultimately, this is a very neat finisher. It may come off like very expensive, but it is a similar effect to the Moonlight Affliction. And it's just more powerful in general, especially if you have if most of your units are fearsome, right? Like this is basically your opponent cannot block. It's like a 1 mana more expensive Harsh Winds with a leveled up Ash on the board. These sorts of effects are actually game winning. And even though it may seem very expensive, it is justified. And I do think this kind of card can be very competitive in the right deck. Though it will be absolutely useless in many, many others. But very, very cool set of cards here. I think that's all when it comes to Nasus. So I'm going to head on over to Mobalytics, and I'm going to see, what cards I've missed from the Kindred reveal as well. And we're going to talk about all these new toys that we'll be getting very soon. So yeah, let's move on to that. All right, so looking at the screen, I see that I recognize none of these cards. And that is just absolutely glorious. So let's immediately jump into this and talk about Destiny's Call right here. 8 mana Targan burst speed spell that grants an ally in hand, +8/+8. Now, this seems ridiculously like slow. It's the epitome of investment, right? It's the epitome of tempo sacrifice, because the earliest you're going to be able to play this most of the time is turn 5 with your spell mana at full. And that is going to be a turn 5 in which you're spending all of your mana and you're inherently doing nothing, right? So you have to have some crazy target for this. I honestly can't really come up with many things that, would justify this card in a competitive deck because it feels so incredibly slow. But I'm pretty sure there are some resources, potentially even out of the Ionia, because I think this card is intended for a Targan Ionia mix to perhaps... to basically supplement or provide some support for the hand buff archetype that has never really been a thing in lore. And I don't know if this card is really going to make the difference, because it feels kind of memes, right? Because it's so unbelievably expensive. But I'm very intrigued by this design because they must have a reason behind it. And maybe we do see more potential in it as we look into other cards. But as of now, it doesn't feel like it should be very competitive at all. We got another Targan landmark right here. I like all these cheap landmarks. There's so many of them to talk about. I think I'm going to reserve my Lysandra and Talia thoughts for another video, though, because otherwise this one's going to be way too long. And I actually want to, be able to talk about things without having to worry about, just taking 2 hours to get my message across. We got Star Tipped Peak here. Countdown 2. Create 2 random celestial cards that cost 3 or less in hand. So a very nice investment. I really like how the direction they're taking with landmarks. It reminds me a lot of Emblems in Shadowverse, and I think Emblems in Shadowverse is a very good example of nice design, like introducing different card types into the game that truly feel different. It's also a card type that really teaches players about investment in card games, knowing when to invest into something, sacrifice momentum for a payoff later down the line, and knowing how to deck build to be able to mitigate this lack of early momentum so that you can drown your opponent in value later down the line without losing to early aggression is very, very key, and it makes for more diversity in decks and strategies, and I am just a big fan. I think this is a very nice direction for them to take with landmarks. I want to see more cheap landmarks that don't have, game warping results, right? And Started Pick does seem to be one of those cases. We see a card here that is going to require 2 turns to provide you with basically card draw, right? It's going to get you card advantage, and it's also going to provide you with Celestials, right? The thing is, they are random. You can't control them, and that's one of the biggest strengths from cards like Spacey Sketcher and, of course, the super cool Star Chart from Zoe. You are able to select from a specific pool and being able to reach out for that clutch Equinox in certain scenarios, or just pick up a good value unit in general, like Messenger, or getting some momentum with the 1 mana 4/1 with Overwhelm. That flexibility and the ability to pick is a big component or a big reasoning behind the power level of those cards. And this landmark takes that away by giving or just leaving the results up to variance completely. So I don't know how good Star Tipped Peak will become ultimately, but I do believe that if it does become relevant, it will be some sort of potentially Targan Shurima combination with Talia and landmark synergy. Like you need some sort of payoff for playing landmarks to justify playing this card, is ultimately what I'm trying to say here. We got a Bilgewater 4-mana burst speed spell that says Lost Riches. Will this draw? This draws. Draw a treasure. If there aren't any to draw, create 2 treasures in your deck instead. So, a very good reason to play the Shipwreck Hoarder, right? The ability to consistently start drawing your treasures. Well, we have more ways to generate treasures is the question, because right now it's just Shipwreck Hoarder, right? I would love that. I love that. I'm really hoping we get more ways to generate treasures to justify running this card competitively, because I love the idea. That's all I really have to say about it. Loaded dice for the rest of the round. When you damage the enemy Nexus, whoa, 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 whoa. This card is dangerous, dude. This card is really, really dangerous. It's a big tempo sacrifice initially, and it is slow speed, right? But the moment this resolves, imagine if you pack up your warding shots, and then you got like a bunch of elusives or some monkeys or whatever, and just go face. And every time you damage the Nexus, you're drawing one. You got those black market merchants on the board. You got potentially a Twisted Fate that you could just level up out of nowhere with this card. I love it. I love this design. Even though I have voiced my opinion against Nab in the past, I do think ever since they made that change of it not targeting the top of the deck but the bottom instead, so you don't feel bad like as a player for having your opponent draw the card that you were going to draw, right? I think, especially because the mechanic is not mainstream, is fine, right? And this feels like an insanely fun card to play that can be just so tilting for the opponent. I can't wait. Like, I love the 2 Bilgewater cards that I have, like... There's so much to say about these cards that I feel like I'm going to take forever, but I don't give a fuck. Let's keep on going. 1 mana, 1/1 Shadow Apprentice. Elusive. When I'm summoned, grant me +1/+1 if an ally has Ephemeral. So a 1 mana 2/2 with Elusive if an ally has Ephemeral. So if you play this with Pesky Spectre, for example, and like this card could be low-key very, very strong for the Ephemeral archetype. The problem is, right now, the Shadow Isles Ephemeral archetype is pretty linked to Demacia because it's very dependent on Grand Plaza to be viable. But I would love for cards like this to promote or maybe even justify the Ionia Shadow Isles region combination again for an Ephemeral sort of deck, because Ephemerals is a very cool concept that has struggled with viability due to its big weakness regarding defense, right? But this is the kind of 1-drop that could really start pushing things in that direction, and I really like it. Really like that it exists. Field Musician. Each round, once you've summoned 3 other allies, refill your spell mana and draw 1 with a tune. A 4 mana 1/4. Keep in mind, even though it's very weak offensively, it does have 4 health, which means it is more resilient than the impression you get from it at first, right? Because it is very understated. This promotes Ephemeral. Whoa! This actually really, really promotes Ephemerals. Just so you guys understand, like, one of the first things that comes to mind with this, obviously, like, if you're playing the game every day like me, is the, I say that and I forget about the card's name. Is it the Haunted Relic? I believe it's the Haunted Relic. The Haunted Relic, the 2-mana slow speed spell from Shadow Isles that spawns 3 ephemeral units, will allow you to basically play that card for free. You play the Haunted Relic, you spawn 3 ephemeral units, you refill your spell mana, and you draw a card, so you play the card for 0 mana. In fact, the card actually potentially ramps you 1 mana, because, you know, if you only have if you have like no spell mana, and you play the Haunted Relic, you're getting 3 spell mana back, so you're ramping 1 mana, and you're drawing a card, so you haven't lost card advantage. It's just like it makes it so that you're not losing any sort of value momentum whatsoever. You're not even losing like actual momentum because you're getting that mana back too. Like Field Musicians is designed, it's meant to be for an ephemeral deck, and I fucking love that. But I'm pretty sure this card will find other homes. Like somebody will, like, this is a card that I feel can be very easily broken, even though it requires you to summon a lot of allies, right? Every turn for you to draw. So it's hard to fit this card in a non-ephemeral archetype and actually make it consistently work. But you could actually, for example, play this with like a variant of like, you know, we used to see Karma, Elise, sort of like control decks in the past with spiders, right? And this could promote that. But then again, you need that space on the board. So unless it's ephemerals, it's hard to actually meet this requirement every turn. But with ephemerals and spells like Haunted Relic, you can. It's by far the easiest way to trigger this. And that's no coincidence, especially after seeing the Shadow Apprentice right here. They really want to push Ionia Shadow Isles ephemerals. And I think Field Musicians could play a huge role in that. Like, this is, right now, out of all the cards that I've seen, even though I love the Bilgewater ones, this is the one that has me the most excited. This is a really fucking cool card, man. I really like it. I don't want to, like, spend an hour on it, but it's a really, really dope card. I love the attune as well to make up for it. I really like it, man. To play, spend all your mana, summon random turrets whose total cost equals the mana spent. So wait, so it's another variant of Thermogenic Beam. Production Surge. Okay, so what happens if I play this on turn 3 with 6 mana? Summon random turrets whose total cost equals the mana spent. So that means that I can go for 6 mana, and then I can get like the 6 mana turret, or I can get 3 2 mana turrets, or I can get a 1 mana, a 3 mana, and a 2 mana turret for 6 mana. I don't know how competitive it's gonna be because it's so random. It's so random. Like, you don't even know the amount of units you're gonna create. Like, you can get like one unit that, you know, racks up all the cost, or you can get a bunch of, like, you can even get like 6 1/1s, right? It's so chaotic that it's hard to envision this card outside of a meme deck, honestly. It feels like very fun, but it's just too wild, right? It's too unpredictable. I have a hard time seeing like what decks would fit this, but maybe like full-on spell decks that have a hard time, you know, filling up the board with units and want to play more spells can justify cards like Production Surge. Maybe even like Heimerdinger Lux with the Mage Seekers. And you can play this on turn 6 instead of Remembrance, in case you don't draw Remembrance, for example, and you can just spawn a bunch of turrets. And then from that point onward, your Mage Seekers, you know, provide you with really strong value, right? So it could find some, like, it could actually be better than I think it will be, but it just feels so random for it to be so, right? We have Concurrent Timelines, another Piltover and Zon. I've really been liking the direction they've been taking with this region, by the way, lately, because I was a little bit disillusioned with it in Rising Tides, and they definitely stepped it up, and I don't know, I really like it. I love stuff like Victor, I love Augment, and I'm already liking these kind of cards as well. For the rest of the game, the first time you play a follower each round, pick one of 3 followers with the same cost to transform into. Pick one of 3 followers with the same cost to transform it into. Is this a hint at Echo? Are we getting Echo? Because if we're getting Echo, I'm gonna lose my shit. Echo is like my favorite PnZ champion, without even being in Runeterra. If this is, I think this is a hint. I think this means we're getting Echo. Holy fuck! If that's true, I'm gonna freak out. For the rest of the game, the first time I really need to say I need to take this card in. It's a 1 mana epic, which is really interesting as well, because epics tend to be expensive. I mean, you know, that's not true, but for the most part they do. At least in the first expansions. The first time you play a follower each round, pick one of 3 followers with the same cost to transform into. Is this from like an entire pool? Does this mean like all the regions, all the cards? Because this may be a little bit too chaotic, but at the same time, this card really provides you with a pretty crazy ability to adapt, right? To what you're facing. I have several questions with this card, though. Like, when you play a follower every round, it transforms into something else. But are we still getting the summon effect before the transformation takes place? Because if in other card games, like MTG, for example, we know how the stack works exactly. So when we read cards, we know exactly how they're supposed to work. But in Runeterra, this doesn't happen. This is like my one gripe with the game. They don't release a rulebook, and then I read cards like this, and I have a bazillion questions. But I'm going to go ahead and assume that this means that the first time you play a follower, it comes on the board, it triggers a summon effect, and then it summons, or it transforms into something else. Which means that if you incorporate summon effects, and you play this alongside stuff like Shadow Assassin, for example, you can play Shadow Assassin for 3 mana, draw a card, and then transform into something more useful, right? That would be really interesting. But, you know, it's hard to say, right? We would have to wait and see. But it's an awesome card. I don't know how competitive it will be, if it will be competitive at all, but it is really intriguing, like, without a doubt. And I will be experimenting with it, like, definitely. The next time you summon another ally, deal 1 to it and grant me +1/+1, the Crimson Bloodletter, another self-harm tool for Noxus. Really dig this. You can play this with the Crimson Curator. Like, this becomes a 1 mana 2/3 that, you know, your Crimson Curator draws you a card, your Crimson Disciple becomes a 2/2 that deals damage, so it's not as good of an effect there. Anything with tough, you know, doesn't care. You play Stefan, and he becomes a 3 mana 5/3, which is not as amazing as you would think, but it's not terrible either. This also allows you to trigger the Scargrounds, which makes it really interesting. This is amazing with Braum. Like, you play Braum, and immediately, like with Scargrounds, you give him +1 attack, and you spawn the Mighty Poro as well. Like, it's the fact that it's not an ongoing effect, because this card would otherwise be way too good, right? I would assume it's the next time you summon another ally, so it only happens once, because otherwise this would keep growing. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Like, this is clearly only one time. So knowing when to time this as well is very neat. It's a card that also needs you to, like, it requires you to sequence properly, right? So it's not easy to pilot either. I love this one drop. I love this one drop for the self-harm archetype. Man, I'm really liking these cards. Seriously, man. Like, there's just so much variety in design and so many different, like, it's really, I feel like this could be the expansion that really shows the potential that Legends of Runeterra has as a card game. Strength in numbers, summon 2 Legion Marauders! Oh my god, they're coming! They're coming! The people in my comments, like for the longest time, I had so many people demanding me to make a Legion Marauders deck. And I think it's finally happening. It's finally happening. We have Strength in Numbers, which will spawn 2 Legion Marauders. In case you don't know, Legion Marauder is a 3 mana 3/2 that it has an attack effect. When you attack, you gain +1/+1. Like, every Legion Marauder, gets +1/+1. So if you have 2 attacking, everyone gets +2/+2. The more you have attacking, naturally, as you can tell, or as you can deduce, you know, the bigger they'll grow, right? They kind of like, they enable each other. And the fact that we have a card that can spawn 2 of them on turn 5, it's very expensive. I have no idea how competitive, if this will even be competitive at all, but I'm definitely going to try it. It sounds fun as hell, and I love that they made a card like this. I love that they made a card that brings some attention to some cards that have been pretty much forgotten from the core set. I really dig it. We have a new spider. Oh, 4 mana 2/5 Shrieking Spinner. Attack, grant spider allies +1 power. I love it. I love it. I love it. Very beefy. Very beefy. It makes it hard for the opponent to remove. If you have a leveled up Elise, you can just challenge the weakest thing. So this thing takes the least amount of damage possible. Or just avoid blockers in general with Fearsome from Elise. Yeah, this card can be a really valuable asset to Shadow Isles Noxus Spiders, and I like it. I like that they're reinforcing some of the older archetypes. I really, really dig that. Soul Spinner from Shadow Isles. When I'm summoned, grant me +1/+1 and Fearsome if an ally died this round. So he'll become a 4/3 with Fearsome for 3 mana. How good is that? A 4/3 with Fearsome is kind of like, it's still a worse version of Iron Ballista in my opinion, but in a deck that really benefits from Fearsome, like Shadow Isles Shurima region combinations, which seem to really promote these fearsome tactics, this card can be just absolutely amazing. Or at least very, like, good enough, right? Wait, we have another sea monster. A cheap sea monster? Nani? What? Sea Scarab, 2 mana, 1/2 deep. When another ally dies or last breath. When another ally dies or last breath, toss 1. Wait, I'm not sure I understand this. When another ally dies or itself. Okay, so it has last breath. Okay, that's very weirdly worded. But yeah, I got it. After reading it for the 4th time, I got it. So when another ally dies or itself dies, you toss 1. It gives you an early game blocker understated. 2 mana, 1/2 is pretty atrocious, but at the same time, it's kind of like doing something similar to Thorny Toad. Horny Toad heals you a little bit, has a bit of a better stat line as well. But this is tossing, and it's a sea monster. The fact it's a sea monster is very relevant because once you go deep, this thing becomes a 4. This thing becomes a 4/5, right? Yeah, 4/5. A 0 mana 4/5. Honestly, I don't know how good this is. Because I mean, it is a sea monster, right? But doesn't this card make? Oh my god, this card makes the Slaughter Dogs weaker, right? Yeah, this card is a nerf to the Slaughter Dogs. Like, I don't know how good this is for deep. First of all, does deep even need this? I don't think deep need this. I think this card is a trap. I think this card is actually a trap. I was very excited about a new sea monster. Especially, it's been a while since we've seen deep, but I think this card is bad. Because, like, just so you guys understand, like, once you go deep, I mean, if you don't have Nautilus on the board, you have a 2 mana 4/5, right? I get it. That's pretty nice. But if you do play Nautilus, this is, like, pretty redundant, right? Because you're reducing the cost of everything, but you're still going to be able to play, like, a 4 mana 7/7 for 0 mana, right? So this doesn't really become, and tossing in the late game is not really as relevant, right? Unless you have some treasure synergy going on. Ultimately, this card does allow you to toss quickly because it doesn't have to die itself, which is a difference from Horny Toad. But besides that, I'm not really too crazy about it, honestly. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't know if this will be very good. And it's undeniable that it is a nerf to the Slaughter Dogs because it really does. It sucks to pull a 2 mana sea monster from the Slaughter Dogs, which is a 3 mana investment. Even if you're deep and it is a 4/5, it's still not. It just doesn't feel great. It's not a huge nerf, but it is definitely a considerable nerf. Dragon Chow. When you play a dragon, it strikes me and you draw 1. What? It fights dragons? What kind of dragon can I guess this is meant to like oh, okay, so it's just, dude, this is just like dragon food? It's so happy though. This is so dark. Look at how happy it looks. Why do you have to make, oh my god, why do you have to make food look that happy? Why are you, I feel terrible. But yeah, you basically play this to feed to a dragon. It replaces itself in your hand and it triggers the Fury. So any dragon that you play on curve, if you play this on turn 1, will have a +1/+1 stat boost, right? Which can definitely go a long way, especially with several dragons out there. So I really like the card design. The art is heartbreaking though. Towering Stonehorn. I love the art here. I don't take damage from enemy spells or skills. So if you gotta kill this motherfucker, you gotta, vengeance it or ruination, because anything else, like, this could be a pretty strong anti-PnZ card amongst other things, But it is still a 6 mana 7/7. It can be chump blocked to oblivion, and it's not doing anything else. But if you do have ways to enhance it, this could be I could see this be more of like a tournament card, to target specific decks that rely purely on damage to remove units, like for example, Easy Draven. Like, how the hell does Easy Draven deal with this? The answer is they don't. So that makes it very interesting. I don't think this will be a ladder card, but I think this card has a lot of potential for tournaments. This video is super long, but we have so many cards to go over, man. It's insane. Ancestral Boon. Grant the top ally in your deck +2/+2. Enlightened. Instead, grant all allies in your deck +2/+2. So I don't know. I don't know about this card. Like, what deck are you trying to run this in? Like a Freljord ramp deck? Why do you care about buffing your deck at that stage, right? And without the Enlightened effect, this is just atrocious. Like, you're playing, like, this is a bad shared spoils, you know? Yeah, I think this card is pretty garbage, to be fair. Grant an ally +1, unless I'm missing something that will enable it much easier. Like, I have to look back into Lysandra and see. Like, maybe I'm missing something. Grant an ally +1/+2. Plunder, granted +2/+4 instead. So, yeah, this could promote the Freljord Bilgewater region combination mode, which is a region combination that I like a lot with Plunder. This also, because this is a Plunder effect, that's also at burst speed. It's very neat because it's another card that can buff up enable the monkey, or the powder pandemonium, rather. I think it's what it's called. Yeah, very good card in that regard. Very good stat boost. Like, +2/+4 is actually insane. This is actually insane. This is better than +3/+3 the vast majority of the time. This is really, really good. This is a very strong buff effect. That seems to be it, though. That seems to be it. We have some other cards to go over, though. There's a lot to talk about, man. You know what? I'm gonna do it up until Lysandra. I'm gonna go up until Ruinous Path. We're going deep into this, but I will leave like Lysandra and Talia for another video. But I am gonna continue to go with this. You know, I may as well while I'm at it. We've seen all these. We got up until here. We see Kindred. We see Kindred Spirit Journey. We've seen all these cards, but these we haven't. Spirit Leech. 4 mana for 1 play. Kill an ally to draw 2. I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it. Great to curve into the Undying. Great into Curse Keeper as well. Very frail, but it does draw you 2 cards. Nets you card advantage and makes it so that you're never going to run out of gas in that deck. So you just have to patch up your early game. It also justifies a lower curve because of this. I also absolutely adore the art. I love everything about this card. And I love it so much that there's just not much more to say about it. Definitely will be playing this as a full set in my future Undying decks. It feels amazing. The Etherfiend, 7 mana 6/4 with Fearsome that has a play effect of killing an ally to kill an enemy. Oh my god, these cards are so dope! These cards are so fucking dope, dude. Oh, I love this. It's expensive, okay? It's definitely expensive. Feels elusive, but I mean, Fearsome is not bad either. I like it, man. I really like it. It's 2 mana more for a crumble that can't hit landmarks, but gives you a 6/4 Fearsome body. I don't know. I love it. I just love it. When I'm summoned, summon a prey. Oh, so that's what I was talking about yesterday. I was saying this 0/1 must do something crazy. Yeah. Right as always. Really like this card, man. It's like a Shadow Isles version of a House Spider, you know? It's overall less stats in total, right? Because House Spider is a total of 6 stats, and this is 5 stats. So it's less than the House Spider, but it does give you sack outlets, right? Like, this card can also enable your Ravenous Butcher easily, Spirit Leech as well. Like, giving you more options. It makes building these Aristocrat sort of decks more complex, because now there's different directions you can take, right? There's different tools you can try out, and it's very exciting. Very exciting times for, like, this is perhaps the first archetype that I'll dive into, because I just love Aristocrat archetypes in card games, and I've been a huge Undying fan, and I feel like we're finally getting an actual package for the strategy. And it's so exciting. Mass Mother, Fearsome, 2 mana, 2/2. Play, kill an ally to grant me its stats and keywords. Interesting. Definitely very interesting. If you play this on a Curse Keeper, you get Fearsome. I wonder if, like, not being able to block is a keyword or not. But if you play this on Curse Keeper, you get a 2 mana 3/3 with Fearsome, and you trigger that. It's not crazy, though. It's not great on Curse Keeper. There have to be better options. I have to look into what good cards this can combine with. It has to be some sort of last breath effect that also has keywords to suck in, you know? Unto Dusk, 2 mana burst speed spell that says draw 1 Nightfall. Activate an ally's Nightfall effect, ignoring any targeted portions. Really dope card. Super interesting for the Nightfall archetype. You can utilize this alongside, for example, a Doom Beast, and get a 2 mana burst speed effect that will draw you a card and deal 2 damage and drain. Well, basically drain 2. You can combine this with what other Nightfall effects do we have that could work really well with this? Because maybe we could even use this to trigger like a unit that we didn't enable the Nightfall before and trigger it then, right? I'd have to look more into this card, but definitely very interesting, very cool design. It's nice to see Nightfall getting more support in the Shadow Isles aspect, right? Like not just more target stuff. Really, really like that. Song of the Isles, 2 mana burst speed spell. Grant an ally. Grant. Lifesteal, Fearsome, and Ephemeral. I was like, well, what's the catch? Like Lifesteal, Fearsome for 2 mana at burst speed? What do I have to sign? Okay, so Ephemeral. So this means that this card can go combined with stuff like Deathmark. This card combined with Deathmark in an Ephemeral Shadow Isles Ionia deck with a lot of card draw, which is very plausible with cards like the Field Musicians. And then you can have Song of the Isles combined with, like I said, Deathmark. So for 5 mana, you're eliminating a unit and you're getting a Lifesteal Fearsome upgrade onto yours. And even though that can be disrupted by the opponent, it is a very nasty and menacing combo in itself. And that already makes me like this card. I also like the fact that it follows the theme, like Mark of the Owls and Song of the Owls. You know, it's kind of like telling something here. It's again, uniformity regarding lore. I really like it. The second death, kill an ally to kill an enemy. That is the other fiend's ability. And then we have Nasus right here. With the Bakai Reaper, the Rampaging Bakai, which is not something we have seen. Play if you've slain 4 or more units this game, an enemy and I strike each other. Very nice effect. Very good stat line as well with the Overwhelm too. This is a fantastic card. I would go ahead and say that this is close to an auto include in like any sort of deck that can enable this on curve. Very good card. Sanctum Conservator. I love the art of this one. Play if you slain 13 or more units this game, kill all enemy followers, then summon a copy of me. Holy shit. Oh my god, dude. It's got its own skill and everything. Conservator's Judgment. That is sick. How can you enable this consistently, though? Like, 13 seems like a lot. But then again, you know, if you ever play They Who Endure decks, it's actually not that much. That is a sick-ass win condition, man. I love it. But then again, I repeat, I do believe Nasus, like Shadow Isles, sort of like Endure archetypes will not be the same. Like you see a lot of these cards, and they can't be mixed together, but I feel like we're definitely going to see more than one Aristocrat-themed archetype being born from all these new cards. There's no way that's not the case. It's so much content. You actually have to be very picky when you build, and you have to know, like, you have to decide for one of various strategies when designing these, and I love that. I love having options in a card game when it comes to archetypes, even if they are similar. I love having options to deck build. It's the best. It's the reason why I play card games. So I'm very, very excited about these specifically these Shadow Isles and Shurima reveals right here, as we have the Right of the Calling, killing ally, or this right. We saw this earlier. We saw Spiritfire. Weight of Judgment we did not see. Deal 2 to a champion or 7 to a follower. It's sacrificing a little bit of reach for flexibility, right? And I'm not sure I like that. I feel like the 7 damage to a follower is excessive. I would like less damage to a follower and have a higher cap for champion damage. But that's not the case, so I don't really think this card will be very competitive. We got Ruinous Path. Draw 1. If you've slain a unit this round, drain 2 from the enemy Nexus. It's still, like, even if I'm not sure. It's decent card draw. It does help. It's health gain that does help you stay alive, but it is slow, which means you can like save yourself from lethal with this. And unlike Doom Beast, which is giving you a fearsome 3/2 body on the board to block with for 1 more mana, this card is just replacing itself in your hand, which is a significant detriment in comparison. Like, Doom Beast is much better than this. So I don't know. It still may end up being played in some of these decks that I'm mentioning. But like I said, it's no Doom Beast. That's for sure. I'm going to stop it here. we've been at it for over 50 minutes. This video is long as hell. But like I said, I had so many cards to talk to. Like, I had a lot of catching up to do. But I will not be talking about any Lissandra or Talia cards, as I will be referencing them later down the line. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you endured all this. Let me know what you thought about, the video format and everything. And if you're satisfied with this, and everything that I covered, then let me know as well, so I can pat myself on the back. This is me and my weird. Okay, whatever. So thank you for watching. Have a solid day. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll be back at it tomorrow, and soon we'll be at it from my new house, which I'm very excited. Setting up the room and everything. I'm eager, man. I'm fucking eager. So yeah, love ya. Thank you for watching. Have a solid day. I'll see you tomorrow.